Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight today. Your biggest battle is not with people, money, or circumstances. Your biggest battle is with your own mind. If you don't learn how to discipline your thinking, your thoughts will run your life. And most of the time, they'll run it straight into fear, doubt, and procrastination. Your mind was never meant to rule you. It was meant to serve you. The problem is, most people hand over control without even realizing it. Every random thought, every fear, every doubt gets a vote in how they live their life. And when your mind becomes the master instead of the tool, it will lead you toward comfort, excuses, and avoidance rather than growth and purpose. Think about it. Your mind reacts before it reasons. It wants safety, familiarity, and instant gratification. It will warn you not to try because trying risks failure. It will tell you to stay quiet because speaking up risks rejection. If you don't discipline that voice, it will keep you small, not because you aren't capable, but because the mind is wired to protect, not to elevate. Protection feels good, but it rarely produces greatness. Discipline begins the moment you decide that every thought does not deserve your obedience. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it has authority over your actions. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. A disciplined thinker pauses and asks, is this thought helping me move forward or is it trying to keep me comfortable? That pause is power. In that space, you reclaim control. When the mind is undisciplined, it jumps to worst-case scenarios. It imagines failure before effort. It predicts rejection before action. And slowly, those imagined outcomes become excuses for inaction. But when you treat your mind like a tool, you train it. You give it direction. You tell it where to focus and what matters. Just like a muscle, the mind responds to repetition and instruction. A tool only works when it's guided by the hand. If you drop a hammer and expect it to build a house on its own, nothing happens. The same is true for your mind. Without guidance, it wanders into fear, comparison, and regret. But when you guide it intentionally toward learning, discipline, and faith, it becomes powerful. It starts solving problems instead of creating them. There will be moments when your mind resists discipline. It will argue. It will complain. It will tell you that you're tired, unqualified, or too late. That resistance doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're taking back control. Growth always creates internal pushback before it creates external results. A disciplined mind doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It moves based on commitment, not comfort. It understands that feelings change, but purpose doesn't. When your mind tries to pull you backward, discipline pulls you forward. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing? And start asking, what does this moment require from me? The moment you stop allowing your mind to dominate your decisions, your confidence begins to rise. You trust yourself more because you're no longer controlled by emotional swings or fearful thoughts. You become consistent. You become reliable to yourself. And that self-trust is the foundation of success. Remember this, your mind is a powerful servant, but a terrible master. When you place it in its proper role, it will help you plan, create, and execute. But you must stay in charge. Discipline your thinking daily. Guide it with intention. Because when you control your mind, you don't just change how you think, you change how you live. One of the most life-changing realizations you can ever have is this. You don't have to believe every thought you think. Thoughts come and go constantly, and many of them are not facts, not truth, and not guidance. They are reactions. They are shaped by past experiences, fear, insecurity, and emotion. Yet most people treat every thought as if it were a command, and that's where discipline breaks down. An undisciplined mind accepts thoughts automatically. If a thought says you're not good enough, it believes it. If a thought says you'll fail again, it agrees. Over time, these unchallenged thoughts become mental habits, and those habits quietly shape behavior. You stop trying, not because you can't succeed, but because you've already convinced yourself that you won't. Mental discipline begins with awareness. You must notice what you're thinking before you can control it. Many people live on autopilot, reacting emotionally without ever questioning the voice in their head. But the moment you step back and observe your thoughts, you create distance. And in that distance, you gain power. You move from being controlled by your thoughts to controlling your response to them. Just because a thought sounds convincing doesn't mean it's true. Fear is persuasive. Doubt is loud. Past failure is persistent. These thoughts often dress themselves up as logic, but their goal is the same: to keep you from risking growth. A disciplined thinker challenges these thoughts by asking simple but powerful questions. Is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is it based on facts or feelings? Most negative thoughts fail this test. When you challenge a thought, you weaken its influence. When you replace it, you rewire your thinking. Replacement is critical. You can't just remove a negative thought and leave empty space. That space will be filled again, usually with the same negativity. Instead, you consciously insert a better thought. Replace "I can't do this" with "I can learn." Replace "I always fail" with "I'm improving." These aren't lies, they're disciplined perspectives. Your mind will resist this process at first because it's used to familiarity. Negative thinking feels familiar even when it's painful. Discipline feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. But with repetition, your mind adapts. Over time, disciplined thinking becomes your default instead of your effort. Believing every thought leads to emotional instability. One negative idea can ruin an entire day. One moment of doubt can cancel weeks of progress. But when you stop believing every thought, emotions lose their control. You become steady. You respond instead of react. You stay grounded even when challenges appear. This doesn't mean you ignore reality or pretend everything is perfect. Discipline is not denial. Discipline is clarity. It allows you to acknowledge difficulty without surrendering to despair. You can say "this is hard" without saying "this is impossible." That distinction changes everything. The quality of your life is directly connected to the quality of your thinking. When you allow unfiltered thoughts to lead you, your life feels chaotic and unpredictable. But when you discipline your mind, you choose which thoughts guide your actions. You decide what deserves your belief. Remember, thoughts are visitors. You don't have to invite all of them to stay. Choose wisely which ones get your trust, because the thoughts you believe today become the life you live. Tomorrow, your future is not shaped by what you intend to do someday. It is shaped by what you focus on every day. Focus is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever it points, your energy follows. If your focus is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your focus is disciplined, your progress becomes inevitable. This is why learning to control your focus is one of the most powerful forms of mental discipline. An undisciplined mind drifts naturally toward problems. It replays mistakes, worries about outcomes, and fixates on what could go wrong. That kind of focus feels productive, but it isn't. It drains energy without producing solutions. When you constantly focus on fear, your mind starts building evidence to support it. Suddenly, every obstacle looks bigger than it really is, and every delay feels like confirmation that you should quit. A disciplined mind chooses focus intentionally. It understands that problems exist, but it refuses to live there. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" it asks, "What can I do next?" That shift in focus changes how you move. Progress doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from doing the next right thing with clarity and commitment. What you focus on repeatedly becomes your reality. When your attention stays on lack, you start thinking small. When it stays on comparison, you lose confidence. When it stays on distractions, you lose momentum. But when your focus stays on growth, learning, and improvement, your mindset expands. You begin to see opportunities where others see limits. Focus also determines how you experience time. When your attention is divided, time feels wasted and progress feels slow. But when your focus is clear, even small efforts feel meaningful. One focused hour can accomplish more than an entire distracted day. Discipline is not about doing more. It's about concentrating on what matters most. Distractions are everywhere, and they are designed to steal your attention. Notifications, opinions, and constant noise pull your mind in 100 directions. Without discipline, you become reactive, responding to everything and committing to nothing. A focused mind learns to say no. It understands that every yes costs attention, and attention is limited. There will be moments when focus feels boring or uncomfortable. That's normal. Focus means staying with the work after the excitement fades. It means continuing when results are not yet visible. This is where discipline separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. The disciplined thinker trusts the process and keeps attention on effort, not just outcomes. Focus also affects your emotional state. When you focus on what you can control, your actions, your attitude, your preparation, you feel empowered. When you focus on what you can't control, other people, timing, outcomes, you feel anxious. Discipline teaches you to redirect your focus back to your responsibility. That redirection restores peace and confidence. You don't need perfect focus all the time. You need consistent focus on the right things. Even when your mind wanders, discipline brings it back again and again. That repeated return is what builds strength. Over time, focus becomes sharper, decisions become clearer, and progress becomes steady. Your future will follow your focus. If you want a different outcome, you must give your attention to different thoughts, actions, and priorities. Focus is not accidental, it's chosen. And when you choose it with discipline, you create a future that reflects intention instead of distraction. The most influential voice in your life is not your boss, your family, or the world around you. It's the voice inside your head. That inner voice speaks to you all day, every day, shaping how you see yourself, how you interpret situations, and how you decide to act. If you don't discipline that voice, it will quietly control your actions, often without you realizing it. For many people, their inner dialogue is harsh and unforgiving. It magnifies mistakes and minimizes progress. One small failure becomes proof that they are not capable. One setback becomes a reason to quit. This kind of self-talk doesn't appear overnight. It develops over years of unchallenged thoughts. When left undisciplined, your inner voice becomes your loudest critic instead of your strongest supporter. Mental discipline begins when you listen to how you talk to yourself. Pay attention to the words you use when things go wrong. Do you encourage yourself or do you tear yourself down? Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? If the answer is no, then your inner voice needs training. Discipline doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means speaking with purpose and honesty instead of judgment. Your inner voice directly influences your actions. When it says you can't do this, your body responds with hesitation. When it says you always mess things up, you stop taking risks. Over time, these messages shape your identity. You don't just hear them, you become them. That's why controlling your inner voice is not optional if you want to grow, it's essential. A disciplined inner voice is intentional. It acknowledges mistakes without turning them into identity. Instead of saying, I failed, it says, that didn't work. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, it says, I need more practice. This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. You move from self-judgment to self-correction, and correction leads to progress. Your inner voice will be tested most when you step outside your comfort zone. Fear will try to speak first. Doubt will raise its volume. Old memories will resurface too, remind you why you shouldn't try. Discipline is the ability to interrupt that conversation and choose a better response. You don't wait for confidence. You speak it into existence through controlled self-talk. Words repeated internally become beliefs. Beliefs repeated become behavior. That's why disciplined self-talk is not motivational fluff, it's mental conditioning. Athletes, leaders, and high performers all train their inner voice. They don't eliminate doubt, they manage it. They don't silence fear, they talk back to it. This doesn't mean your inner voice must always be positive. Forced positivity is just as damaging as negativity. Discipline is balance. It allows you to say, this is hard, without saying, I can't handle it. It allows you to admit fear without surrendering to it. Honest, disciplined self-talk keeps you grounded and resilient. When you control your inner voice, you control your actions. You show up even when motivation is low. You stay calm under pressure. You recover faster from setbacks. And most importantly, you build trust with yourself. You become someone who follows through because your inner voice supports effort instead of sabotaging it. Your mind is always talking. The question is whether it's leading you forward or holding you back. Discipline your inner voice and your actions will follow with clarity, courage, and consistency. Most people believe that motivation is what drives success, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on mood, energy, and circumstances. Emotional discipline, on the other hand, is what creates consistency. When you learn to control how your emotions influence your thinking, you stop letting temporary feelings decide permanent outcomes. Emotions are powerful, but they are not wise. They react to the moment, not the mission. When you feel tired, your emotions say rest. When you feel afraid, they say avoid. When you feel discouraged, they say quit. None of those messages are evil. They are natural. But if you allow emotions to lead, progress becomes optional and discipline disappears. Emotional discipline means acknowledging what you feel without allowing it to control what you do. You don't deny emotions, you manage them. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel afraid and still take action. You can feel unmotivated and still stay committed. Discipline is choosing action based on values, not feelings. Without emotional discipline, consistency is impossible. One good day leads to effort, and one bad day leads to excuses. Life becomes a cycle of starting strong and quitting early. But disciplined thinkers understand that emotions change daily while purpose remains steady. They don't wait to feel ready, they act because they decided to. Emotional discipline is built in small moments. It's choosing to continue when it would be easier to stop. It's doing the work when nobody is watching. It's following through on promises you made to yourself. Each time you act despite emotional resistance, you strengthen self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of long-term success. There will be days when your emotions are loud. Stress, frustration, and disappointment will test your commitment. In those moments, discipline doesn't argue with emotions. It redirects focus. Instead of asking, how do I feel? A disciplined mind asks, what needs to be done right now? That simple shift moves you from reaction to responsibility. Emotional discipline also protects you from overreacting. When emotions run unchecked, small problems feel overwhelming. You say things you don't mean, make decisions you regret, and create setbacks that didn't need to exist. Discipline creates space between feeling and action. In that space, wisdom has time to step in. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about stability. You don't need to be fired up every day. You need to be dependable. Emotional discipline makes you dependable to yourself. It keeps you moving forward, even when progress feels slow and invisible. Over time, that steady movement compounds into real results. This kind of discipline is not developed overnight. It is trained through repetition. Every time you choose action over comfort, commitment over emotion, you are teaching your mind who is in charge. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Later, it feels empowering. Eventually, it becomes your identity. When emotional discipline is in place, confidence grows naturally. You trust yourself because you know you won't quit when things get hard. You don't panic when motivation fades because you've learned how to function without it. That confidence changes how you approach challenges and opportunities. Success doesn't belong to the most motivated, it belongs to the most disciplined. When you master emotional discipline, consistent action becomes your default. And consistency over time always wins. Every outcome in your life can be traced back to a decision, and every decision begins with a thought. This is why Mastering your thoughts is the highest level of self-control. If your thinking is undisciplined, your life will feel reactive, scattered, and uncertain. But when you learn to guide your thoughts with intention, you begin to guide your life with purpose. An undisciplined mind moves. It's in circles. It replays the past, worries about the future, and struggles to stay present. It reacts emotionally instead of responding wisely. When challenges arise, it panics. When opportunities appear, it hesitates. Over time, this mental chaos creates frustration, inconsistency, and regret. Life feels like something that keeps happening to you instead of something you are actively building. Mastery begins with awareness. You cannot control what you don't recognize. The moment you become conscious of your thinking patterns, you step into leadership over your life. You notice when your thoughts drift toward fear, comparison, or self-doubt. Instead of following them, you redirect them. That redirection is the practice of mastery. Mastering your thoughts does not mean eliminating negative thinking. It means managing it. Doubt will show up. Fear will appear. Old habits will try to resurface. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about direction. When your thoughts move in the wrong direction, you gently but firmly guide them back toward clarity, truth, and action. Your thoughts influence your choices, and your choices influence your habits. Habits repeated over time create character. Character shapes destiny. This is why mental discipline is not just a mindset practice, it is a life practice. Small changes in thinking lead to powerful changes in behavior, and those changes accumulate into transformation. When you master your thoughts, your confidence becomes stable. You are no longer easily shaken by criticism or setbacks. You understand that failure is information, not identity. You stop taking every challenge personally and start seeing them as part of growth. This mental strength allows you to stay calm under pressure and focused in uncertainty. Mastery of thought also brings clarity. Instead of being overwhelmed by options, you make decisions based on values. Instead of chasing everything, you commit to what matters most. Your mind becomes a place of strategy rather than stress. This clarity saves energy and increases effectiveness in every area of life. As your thinking becomes disciplined, your actions align naturally. You procrastinate less because your mind is not constantly negotiating comfort. You follow through more because your thoughts support commitment instead of resistance. You become consistent not because it's easy, but because your thinking is structured around purpose. The ultimate reward of mastering your thoughts is freedom. You are no longer controlled by impulses, moods, or external pressure. You respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. You live with direction instead of confusion. This freedom doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from controlling your inner world. Mastering your life is not about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions, choosing better thoughts, and taking responsibility for your direction. When you master your thoughts, you master your responses. When you master your responses, you master your actions. And when you master your actions, you master your life.